well, I guess I can only watch so much Kevin Samuels and so many family court trials. Actually, that's not true. I can watch a lot of it. Welcome back to Far From Eden. It's good to have you here. Happy Sunday. Yes, in my spare time, I don't enjoy long walks on the beach. I can't manage long walks on the beach. You know, there's my cane. Anyway, like that doesn't happen. And I didn't like them before that anyways, you know, when I was younger. And fine dining, what is even that? Like, I remember that when I was younger and I was like, I'd rather have Taco Bell. Anyway, that's just me. But I just joke because I've heard that's what women on, at least back in the day, maybe, I don't know what they say now, women on dating apps will say, you know, fine dining, walks on the beach, whatever. The other one is, I like to curl up with a good book. Well, yes. So that's after the videos we did, the last 4 or 5 videos was reading that essay from Christine Emba from the Washington Post, all about what's wrong with men and why they're lost and they need to come back and how they get back. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I think we all almost stroked out from going through that. As I said in one of them, this is giving me neurological symptoms because yes. And one of you pointed out that I need to watch out about getting too angry because yes, it will flare up the symptoms a little bit, but I don't like to talk about that. Anyway, so speaking of curling up with a good book, I had mentioned this on another video. I have a copy of the Grimm's Fairytales, and I know that you can just look it up. I could have Googled it, printed it out, but this is a book. I don't know if you guys can see. Look at how old. I just want you to know, like, this has not been in my care very long. I got this from a former horse riding student, my very first one years and years ago. Her 90-something-year-old grandfather gave me some furniture when I first moved in here, which was very lovely of him. And it was, they were his treasures. So he was only willing to part with it with his family and friends. I felt so honored to be able to get, real kitchen table that, wasn't made in China. It's actually made of real wood. And anyway, while I was going through the house with him, I saw this old book and I was like, ooh, I don't know what it is, but it's really old. So do you mind? And he's like, no, sure. And then I looked at the Grimm's Fairytales. I forgot about it for like the last year. And then when I referenced Cinderella, about how women always think that they should get what they want and their dreams, aka delusions, should definitely come true, I was like, we grew up on, a dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep. In dreams you will lose your heartache. Whatever you wish for, you keep. Have faith in your dreams and someday a rainbow will come shining through. No matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing, the dream that you wish will come true. Now, I did not plan to recite the lyrics to the Cinderella song. I don't know why the unicorn, that's Bosco, is showing so much. Sorry, we will adjust. Anyway, I wasn't planning on reciting the lyrics of that to you guys, but I made a video about it explaining why do women think that they get all this? How do they? Anyway, and somebody said in the comments about the original Cinderella. So when I found this book, I was like, oh, it just feels so much more real coming from the old book than if I printed it off the internet. I love the smell of old books. Old bookstores, small bookstores in small towns are like the best. Anyway, totally totally a nerd. I said once, when I was trying to be a horse trainer while fighting this disease, it's pretty hard to do that, but I realized like I don't have it. I don't have what it takes to be a wife. Like nobody would want me, etc. I have videos about that. But at one point, I really did allow myself to wish for it. And part of what I said to myself was, I'll never meet him anyway, because he's probably in a library somewhere. Anyway, so Cinderella is a bit of a longer story for today. Thought we'd have a little bit lighter fare and something that has to do a little bit more with what we just were talking about. We talked so much about masculinity this and masculinity that. And I noticed in here is Little Red Riding Cap. Is that what they call it? I think. Yes, Little Red Cap. And I saw that in the table of contents and I thought, wait a minute, maybe that's Little Red Riding Hood. So I skimmed a bit of it and it sure is. And I think that it seems through a couple of the things that I've seen from skimming it, and I looked it up to see, well, what do today's mainstream people say about it, and what was the original message of the story. And well, I found lies, because about the moral of the story is not to talk to strangers. Well, I looked in there and I was like, no, actually that doesn't seem to be one of it. I could be wrong, like I said, I haven't read it, but I think it has some important things in it that, yeah, they're gonna want. Of course they took these stories and rewrote them, reimagined them, if you will, because the messages that are in them, at least from what I can see so far, not things that they want to say today, So let's have a look at this and see what we can see. Little Red Cap. Once upon a time, there lived a sweet little girl who was beloved by everyone who saw her. But her grandmother was so excessively fond of her that she never knew when she had thought and done enough for her. Well, everybody loves this little girl, and she seems pretty privileged so far. One day, the grandmother presented the little girl with a red velvet cap, and as it fitted her very well, she would never wear anything else, and so she was called Little Red Cap. One day, her mother said to her, "Come, Red Cap, here's a piece of nice meat and a bottle of wine. Take these to your grandmother. She is ill and weak and will relish them. Make haste before she gets up. Go quietly and carefully, and do not run, lest you should fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. When you go into her room, do not forget to say, 'Good morning,' and do not look about in all the corners." "I will do everything as you wish," replied Red Cap, taking her mother's hand. Those are all very good instructions. Those are instructions that you would give a little girl who's mannerly and considerate and polite, sweet, all of those things. The mother did not say, "Don't talk to strangers." The mother didn't say, "Be careful of any kind of danger." She just was like, "Don't run so you won't break the bottle." It's not like she didn't give her any instruction. It's clear there are no instructions here about any kind of threats or dangers lurking about between their house and grandmother's house. There's also no mention of the father. He's probably at work because, of course, there would be two parents. But if Dad was there, knowing that his little sweet, innocent daughter, Red Cap, is heading off into the woods, maybe he would have said, hey, there's some things in the woods. So I have to wonder, how many times did she get sent into the woods before, or by herself? I don't know yet. But right now, all I know is Mom is sending her into the woods and giving her some advice, but really ignoring others. And what that reminds me of is sending a young lady off to college that is not going to be a popular opinion. But honestly, do you really think that we know when we are 18 years old about the actual dangers and things? Do you think that we can discern who the good guys are and who the ones who would actually hurt us are? It doesn't seem like we do. And I will tell you, I didn't. And I'm not stupid, but I was raised a certain way where there weren't dangers in my world like that. Those dangers were over there and they were obvious, And I was taught be polite. I was taught all those things. But none of that. I still have to be reminded, hey, that there are bad people in the world. You don't know that you can trust that person. And I'm like, oh yeah. So far, I'm like, don't send your sweet young lady into the woods. There are dangers there and you men know it. So I'm just cautioning you about your daughters. And the sad thing is, I know you can't really say much because the world will say, well, you're just controlling and you want to keep her in the kitchen. It's really, you want to protect her. And I wish that my father and mother, but father, because it's really more his place, I wish they had known to protect me. My wolf wasn't at college though. He was somewhere else, but it was during those years. The grandmother dwelt far away in the wood, half an hour's walk from the village, and as Little Red Cap entered among the trees, she met a wolf. But she did not know what a malicious beast it was, and so she was not at all afraid. Kind of like the snake in the garden. Good day, Little Red Cap, he said. How do you know her name? Or maybe, okay. Hold on. Good day, Little Red Cap, he said. Many thanks, said she. Whither away so early, Little Red Cap? To my grandmother's, she replied. What are you carrying under your apron? Meat and wine, she answered. Yesterday we baked the meat. That grandmother, who is ill and weak, might have something nice and strengthening. See, she doesn't even know. She thinks, listen, I know what Little Red Cap thinks. She thinks, well, it would be rude to be like, excuse me, I don't know you. It's really against my nature and the way I was raised to be like, it really is. Like, I would be like smiling and I'd be polite. Well, this is what I'm doing and where I'm going, and it's nice to meet you. And to assume that person was a danger or a threat or had malintentions would be rude on my part. And I get it. Like, that's men who care about me. They're like, oh my God, I know. But this is, you can't, yeah. Where does your grandmother live? Asked the wolf. A good quarter of an hour's walk farther in the forest. The cottage stands under 3 great oak trees. Near it are some nut bushes, by which you will easily know it. Well, I mean, by this point, she's just being nice and making conversation. The problem is when you're raised in a certain atmosphere, you just think that most people are nice and most people are good. and you'll somehow know the bad ones. And we don't. There's one man that says to me a lot of the time, he says, why are they always choosing losers and felons? And I am like, because they don't know. They think, they're confused about the masculinity portion. They're like, oh, he's strong and tough, and like, no, he's criminal. And you, that's not the type you want to look for. You want to look for the men who stand against those minority of men that are, dangerous. I think it's Jordan Peterson that said once that, like, you have to learn as a man, you have to learn how to be dangerous and then learn how to control it. I might be paraphrasing a little bit from what he exactly said, but I thought, wow, that's interesting, because it's so different from what we women have to think about and do. This is more what we women have to think about and know, because we really don't, we cannot discern. I so wish my father had. I honestly wish my parents had said, okay, these are the ones you could choose from. Okay, so she's basically telling him how to get to her grandmother's house. But the wolf thought to himself, she is a nice tender thing and will taste better than the old woman. I must act craftily that I may snap them both up. Presently, he came up again to Little Red Cap and said, just look at the beautiful flowers which grow all around you. Why do you not look about you? I believe you don't hear how beautifully the birds sing. You walk on as if you were going to school. See how merry everything is around you in the forest? I mean, he sounds like such a nice guy. That's the thing, the nice guys know exactly what to say. But the good guys can tell that what the plans are of the not so nice guys, and we can't. So Little Red Cap opened her eyes, and when she saw how the sunbeams glanced and danced through the trees and what splendid flowers were blooming in her path, she thought, if I take my grandmother a fresh nosegay, that's a new word for me, she will be very pleased, and it is so very early that I can, even then, get there in good time. And running into the forest, she looked about for flowers, but when she had once begun, she did not know how to leave off, and kept going deeper and deeper among the trees in search of some more beautiful flower. Oh no. The wolf, however, ran straight to the house of the old grandmother and knocked at the door. Okay, so he basically got her off of her path. Boy, this reminds me of my wolf. They do. They'll take where you are, and we allow it to just completely derail us. When there's probably a really good man that we've friend zoned. I didn't do that, but I have heard you guys, and they're the good ones. But we've friend zoned them, and so here we are with the wolf getting distracted, going deeper into the woods where it's, more danger awaits. Wow. So the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house. Who's there? Asked the old lady. Only Little Red Cap, bringing you some meat and wine. Please open the door, replied the wolf. Lift up the latch, cried the grandmother. I am too weak to get up. So the wolf is clearly taking advantage of the innocent, the weak, the vulnerable. So the wolf lifted the latch and the door flew open, and jumping without a word on the bed, he gobbled up the poor old lady. Then he put on her clothes and tied her cap over his head, got into the bed and drew the blankets over him. All this time, Red Cap was still gathering flowers, and when she had plucked as many as she could carry, she remembered her grandmother and made haste to the cottage. Man, we get distracted. The brothers Grimm, they were describing women for sure. Why is Grandma living alone? I just realized that. I'm like, why is Grandma living alone deep in the forest? Anyway. Okay. So he put on her clothes and tied her cap over his head, got into the bed, and drew the blankets over him. All this time, Redcap was gathering flowers, and when she had plucked as many as she could carry, she remembered her grandmother and made haste to the cottage. She wondered very much to see the door wide open. Oh, right, because the door's open. She wondered very much to see the door wide open. And when she got into the room, so the door's open, and she's like, oh, why is it open? I guess we're still not concerned. And when she got into the room, she began to feel very ill and exclaimed, how sad I feel. I wish I had not come today. Then she said, good morning, but received no answer. So she went up to the bed and drew back the curtains, and there lay the grandmother, as she thought, with the cap drawn half over her eyes, looking very fierce. Oh, grandmother, what great ears you have! The better to hear you with, was the reply. And what great eyes you have! The better to see you with. And what great hands you have! The better to touch you with. All right. So Little Red Riding Hood, Redcap, these are red flags. Okay, the door was wide open, right? Grandma looks different. Maybe, I'm sure she's seen Grandma before. But still, she's still not realizing, oh, this could be danger. You know why? Gosh, because we're not wired to actually protect ourselves. Just realizing this right now while I'm talking to you guys and reading this for the first time. We're really not. We are not wired to actually protect ourselves. We have no idea how to do it. We can't discern between good men and bad men. I mean, if it's really obvious, but isn't it interesting that women want to malign all men, say all men are this, masculinity is this? And I think it's because they're so confused about it. They think all aggression is bad and all dominance is bad and all hierarchies are bad. And that's just not true. Obviously not true. When it's explained to me, when it was explained, I'm like, yeah, it's not true. Because you need aggression to kill the bad guy, you know? You need strength to do anything. So to take all of that and say, oh, it's bad, 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 and then go, well, crap, now what do we do? That was kind of like the article that we did for the past 5 videos. It was like, oh, well, it's all bad. Well, wait a second. Well, what's good? Let's redefine it, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't need redefining. It needs us, women, to just get out of the way and let them do what they did and were improving upon for all the years since, 1776. And I know that it goes back farther. We have the Magna Carta in 1215, that also started to improve things. But yeah. So what great hands you have, the better to touch you with. But grandmother, what great teeth you have. Another red flag. The better to eat you with. And scarcely were the words out of his mouth when the wolf made a spring out of the bed and swallowed up poor little Redcap. As soon as the wolf had thus satisfied his appetite, he laid himself down again in the bed and began to snore very loudly. A huntsman, passing by, overheard him and thought, how loudly the old woman snores. I must see if she wants anything. See, all right, we've already got the huntsman. He's out there. He hears one thing, she's snoring pretty loud. I better check on her. This little girl, okay, first of all, the mom sends her into the forest where there's all these dangers. She doesn't warn her about the dangers. Little girl's innocent and pure. She doesn't know anything about dangers. Just sends her out. And the little girl knows nothing about it. It's obvious what was going to happen. And grandma clearly does not need to be living out there in the woods by herself. And she just has the latch on her door and just trusts anybody who's going to walk right in. Right? The huntsman hears a loud snore and he's like, you know what? Something's not right. I'm going to go check. See if she needs anything, because he still thinks of service, right? We've had one man in this story so far, and he's smarter than two women put together. Oh, but we're not meant to be smart like that. It's just not. We're meant to be smart like taking care of babies, taking care of the home, cooking the dinner, managing all of that, keeping all that running, and having the energy to do that. So he stepped into the cottage, and when he came to the bed, he saw the wolf lying in it. What do I find you here, you old sinner? He called him a sinner. I have long sought you, exclaimed he, and taking aim with his gun, he shot the old wolf dead. And that's it. That's the end of that story. There's no, I know Little Red Riding Hood, don't talk to strangers. And she goes out there and she talks to strangers, and what I remember from Little Red Riding Hood is that the wolf is dressed up like grandma, and then because he's eaten grandma, he's about to eat Little Red Riding Hood. The huntsman comes in, cuts the wolf open, saving grandma and saving Little Red Riding Hood from the consequences of their own actions. Guess who's not saved from the consequences of their actions in this book? The mother who lost her child, whom she sent into the forest. The grandmother who got eaten because she just lets whoever in and just lives in the middle of the woods by herself as a frail old woman. And Little Red Riding Hood got gobbled up herself. And that's just, you didn't get saved, because consequences have actions. And it's nothing to this. That is not a tale about not talking to strangers. It's not. It's about protecting innocence. It's about protecting the vulnerable. It's about don't trust women to make decisions. It's about we can't discern. And it's also about real masculinity. The wolf is representative of a bad guy, right? I guess he's representative of toxic masculinity. I hate that term. But he's a bad guy. Clearly, the huntsman has been after him for a while. He recognized him. He called him a sinner. And I'm sure that's, because the wolf is representative of a certain character in society, I think. And, yeah. But, he couldn't get to him quickly enough. Not for lack of trying. But what would have helped him is if these women hadn't made it so easy to be victims. And if there had been some other dude in charge, maybe if the father before he left for work had said, now, just in case you're thinking of sending our little girl, who's sweet and innocent and pure, off into the forest, don't do that. But the problem is a lot of times you men, you good guys, you give us too much credit. I think that was a mistake my father made. And I think he did it out of love, thinking I could make my own choices and I had good head on my shoulders. But I really didn't. I was so much like little Redcap because I met a man who was 10 years my senior. I thought, that's great. I was 19, he was 29. And I thought, that's good because what do I know? I'm 19. An older man would make sense. And that wasn't wrong. What was wrong was there were red flags. There were red flags. On, it wasn't our first date. We went out to lunch, maybe a second date or something, and it came to light that he partook of a certain drug that was illegal at the time. Now, there's medical uses for this, and I totally understand it. But the way he was describing it and the parties that his family would have, whom I had not met, red flag for me. Even if it was just like, ooh, we grew up very differently, I don't know that this will mesh. And I had the red flag, and I thought, well, I said, I don't think this is going to work. We'd only gone on a couple of dates. And then, of course, I don't do it anymore. That was before. I'm not like that anymore. And me, sitting back down in my chair. Okay. Like, why? Why do you believe him? I was 19, right? And I was 19. I looked 19. I had a barn full, because of my parents, a barn full of show horses, a 28-acre farm with an indoor arena, and like I said, show horses. He was the assistant trainer of our trainer that we sent young horses to be broke and, brought up, because I was only, 19, and I was, college and stuff. And, he was a groom / assistant trainer. I should have thought to myself, well, why hasn't he really advanced much farther than that? He's already 29. What's he been doing? He was divorced and had a daughter, which of course endeared me to him more, made me attribute good things to him, as women do. I've learned this from watching my sort of some red pill content, Kevin Samuels and others. Like, we look at those guys and we think, well, they have the capacity to care for a child, therefore, and we, not consciously, but totally works. But I didn't think to myself, well, like, anyway, he was a wolf. He was a wolf. And it's 100%. Look, the wolf, is he the villain in the story, or is he just a wolf? Who's the villain? Is the villain the mother who sent her daughter into the woods? Is the villain the grandmother who would think that's fine? Or who left her, was such a such an easy target? Who is the villain? The wolf is a wolf, and there will be wolves. There will always be wolves. Women don't like that. And there just always will be, because evil exists in the world. You're not going to stomp it out completely. So you need to have a society that's set up to deal with it. And if you completely, figuratively castrate all the men, all the good men, the wolves are going to be the ones that are walking around freely. So anyway, I found that interesting. I don't know if you guys are going to like it or not, or think it's interesting, but I don't know. I do. And I think it would behoove girls to grow up with those sorts of fairy tales, not the Disney type fairy tales that we actually grew up with. We need to know that consequences are real. We need to hear not horrible, horrible things, but contained in a fairy tale like that, brilliant. If I had a daughter, I'd be reading Grimm's fairy tales to her and the son. It's excellent. It's excellent. Some things have just always been true and will be true until the end of time. And you can say, well, times are different now. I'm sorry, but just some things will just always be true. Men are always going to be men. Women are always going to be women. So thank you guys for joining me for Story Hour. It was much easier and more pleasant to go through that than the last reading what the fine young woman from the Washington Post had to say. I have to stop myself from saying compost every time. Anyway, so I hope you guys are having a great Sunday, and I guess it's back to my, I gotta find out how this trial that I'm watching goes. God, that woman. She was literally, the trial I was watching today, I'll just tell you this really quickly. The trial I'm watching today, she literally was trying to get the ex-husband to continue paying for her car, which was in his name. She'd been using it, driving it. She wanted him to continue paying the payments and covering the insurance. Why? Because he always had. And my kids need a car. What? Lady. And this judge was older, so I've been yelling at my screen like, he's older school. Some of the younger judges I've seen, they're like, you need to provide that. Why aren't you working? The younger judges are saying that now. This guy, he was from old school, like just believe the woman and do whatever she says. But I have a feeling in the end it doesn't work out that way. So I have to see the end or I'm gonna feel so unfulfilled. But yeah, that was ridiculous. And I know it's not like, oh, that never happens. I'm not saying I was shocked. It's just, it never ceases to amaze me, the audacity these women have. She really thinks that he should be providing a car. Why? Because he always has. Yeah, well, you let him do other stuff to you too, because you always had. Are you gonna still do that? But anyway, have a good rest of your Sunday, and take care of yourselves. Do something that feeds your soul. We have beautiful weather here where I am today, and be careful. It's St. Patrick's Day. Please be careful. I know a lot of people drink on St. Patrick's Day. Don't drink too much. And please, if you're gonna go out and drink, please, establish a plan before you drive home. Like, have the plan in advance, because I worry about you guys. And it's especially hard when you're going through a lot of stuff or you've been through a lot of stuff to not get down. And so I hope you do something wonderful today. And I love you guys, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.